Albert Schweitzer writes, "As we acquire more knowledge, things do not become more comprehensive, but more mysterious. Every day of our lives we learn. However, do we take advantage of what we learn, or keep repeating the same mistakes over and over?" I sometimes wonder, often asking why we have to experience the same discordances, just like I did, but I have no answer. When I moved to Honora Crescent with Rosemary, I began a thorough research into my brother's whereabouts, for I had not heard from him for a very long time. To be more precise, since the mid-1980s. Every attempt I made ended in similar results. He had disappeared from the face of the earth. How could it be as if he was living on another world, or in another dimension? However, when I went to live in Endeavor Hills, I made a meaningful connection. In reality, I conducted my research through the Internet and relevant authorities all around the world, through Interpol and even the FBI, as well as placing ads through higher educational organizations in the States, Europe, and Turkey. The West Virginia University informed me that my brother had left for Turkey and was working at the Selçuk University as a lecturer in their physics department. When I contacted them, they provided me with a number of names similar to that of my brother's alleged identity. However, none seemed to recognize him, although he most certainly worked with them. By the time I was able to communicate with him, he had been made redundant. I wondered what had happened to him after such an early retirement. Could it have anything to do with the Turkish government at the time, for they were, according to the current political atmosphere, sadly lacking in human rights issues as with Armenian minority groups and others in their country. I was about to give up with my research, but somehow one of his sons, Barış, contacted me through social media, advising me that he was very doubtful whether his father wanted to communicate with me, but he did not know why. I wondered what lies he had been furnished with. Did he perhaps think that I was involved with the witnesses, and he was uninterested in their ways, thus not wanting to have anything to do with them? Saddened, I told Barış to relay my message to his father, which was this: I love him as my brother, no matter what happens, even if we never talk to each other. A short while later, my brother sent me a message and gave me his address and phone numbers. From then on, I started producing DVD video discs, partially speaking in broken Turkish, as I had not used this language for a long time, and in English, although he had not practiced it for a considerable period. In those programs, I explained all about my interests, my educational achievements, and current family situation, correcting some of the false assumptions I was subjected to from my now ex-family and their friends. In those assumptions, I was considered lost to the fanatical Jehovah's Witness faith. When he discovered what I was really interested in academically, had studied, researched into, and experimented with, apart from my university engagements and group activities, he was relaxed and very happy. After I had introduced him to a variety of social media connections, such as Skype and Messenger, we began communicating in earnest 2 or 3 times a week, enjoying the experience. He was living in Denizli, a beautiful township close to the city of Izmir, historic Smyrna, and Ephesus in Turkey. I remember what he once said in regard to living there before his journey, while still in the States. I feel indebted. He chose to live in Turkey partly due to our father's desire to stay there. However, I could see how he now regretted his decision to leave the U.S. He lived with our parents and was married to a Turkish woman. They had 2 sons, but got divorced for many reasons he did not wish to speak of. Our father had passed on with prostate-related complications resulting in kidney failure, but our mother lived to a ripe old age, still maintaining her alertness, although she went blind in one of her eyes close to the time of her passing. They had erected a simple gravestone for our father, but mother's had not been completed yet. Haldun's facial expressions and body language declared that he had much heartache and broken dreams, which he confirmed over time. He was very disillusioned with his ex-wife, who had been instructing their sons, when very young, to tackle their grandmother, our mother, helping her to fall, sticking their legs out in front of her so that she would quickly die. Maybe there was a huge psychological issue he had to deal with in regard to his then-wife, but I do not know the actual background of his personal affairs, as he did not disclose much. His first wife was bitter, possibly due to him belonging to the assumed dog race, as this was a very likely scenario. His university appointment as a physicist and lecturer continued. After moving to Denizli, he met a former student who was 16 years his junior. They got married, but their current marriage has been bitterly criticized by his former wife. His first son chose to live with his mother, whereas the second one was living independently and was involved in musical interests, playing bass guitar in a group. He was also the closest to my brother, occasionally staying at his place. After his studies, he was conscripted to the military for just a few months. When I met him over Skype, he had long hair with a ponytail, just like me, making me think that it ran in the family. He also had similar views, like the American natives, and New Age philosophies. I often spoke about the human brain and mind-over-matter-related subjects with him. Recently, he won a place at a music academy and was learning classical piano. Again, an uncanny resemblance to my interests as with my love of piano music. He was a joy to speak to, although not too amicable with my brother's current partner, often blaming her for his father's ill health, due to him having had a quadruple bypass operation. Haldun was still experiencing intermittent discomfort and pain in his chest. He had also been an extremely heavy smoker, and therefore developed emphysema and was on medication. My brother had developed interesting hobbies such as 3D photography, building model aircraft, flying model helicopters, and stargazing with his telescope from his balcony. Most certainly, very appropriate interests for a physicist like him. He happily sent me pictures of his environment and those related to his hobbies through social media, which I appreciated. Denizli certainly contains incomparable natural beauty and delightful flora. Because of the time difference, we celebrated the New Year twice, toasting it in together. He became a New Ager after his discoveries of the esoteric sciences and spirituality, showing particular interest in literature, such as Conversations with God and Cryon, translated into several languages, including Turkish. He eagerly sent me a few of those books, and we had great debates concerning them. However, his partner delighted in constantly complaining about men who were apparently the lowest of all creatures, and therefore all the fault in today's world was instigated by them everywhere around the globe. I am sure she was not too happy when I made mention of human rights issues, and that both genders were responsible for the condition in today's societies. According to information, Miriam had a serious medical condition due to a brain hemorrhage needing a lengthy recovery, during which she had a near-death experience and astral outings, apparently meeting our space brothers, and could allegedly prophesy future events, but I could only take it all with a pinch of salt, since I did not know her well. However, my brother adored her. Although extremely intelligent, and not normally believing everything spoken as being true, Haldun took his wife's predictions very seriously. They also had a psychic development group at their home, but certain unacceptable behavior concerning the group leader towards Miriam was not appreciated, thereby leading them to abandon the experience. Both Haldun and his wife were keenly interested in animal welfare, caring for neglected cats and dogs. They had a small dog, a fluffy white bundle of joy they called Kardelen. And when the poor animal died, my brother was devastated. During his post-operation days, another rescued dog, which was blind in one eye due to rough handling previously, became their new pet, and they called him Lazy. Unfortunately, this one caused some concern to him, and as a result, his son Baruch argued with Miriam regarding his father's health. Later I discovered that Baruch was communicating with Birgit in Perth, and was encouraged to go and stay with her, for she apparently promised to look after him. I warned him that she was struggling with her own life, and personally I could not trust her due to my own experiences and being blamed for every mishap which had happened within the family, wherein the real culprits were ignored. He took that wrongly, complaining to Miriam that I was painting my daughter as bad, and she was probably innocent. From then on, I preferred to have no further communication with him. Maybe he understood me as if I did not want him to come to Australia, but that was not my intention. Even after his conscription service into the Turkish military, we hardly had any communication. My brother was extremely unhappy about his father-in-law, who was only a year older than me, and was commanding him to do things according to his own set of rules and regulations, as if Haldun was a child. As a result, he would not let Miriam's father into their home. Her mother spent a lot of time in hospital, and therefore Miriam needed to spend more time with her parents in the nearby village. My brother was exceedingly unhappy at being left alone for days, but as he explained, his hobbies were keeping him alive. He was also annoyed with the majority of their Turkish neighbors and friends' complaints about his hobbies and interests, and developed a fear of intrusion by those people. However, he was very excited to listen to my radio programs broadcast from Melbourne, Australia, on a local station, but also over the internet, and recorded them, sending me almost all those recordings through social media. As time went by, and I was living in Stanley Street, Frankston, I continually corresponded with him. There came a time when I decided to put videos of my discussions on social media through YouTube for all interested people, and the response from all around the world was fantastic. I also included a few video discourses about my own story and partial involvement with the cultist group through my unfortunate marriage to a Jehovah's Witness. Alas, my brother found them a little boring due to his lack of English, and told me he could only listen for 5 or 10 minutes at a time. In fact, it was not important to me whether he listened to them or not, for they were out there for those who were interested in hearing those stories and discussions. He was disturbed about what my daughter had complained to Barish about me telling only lies, as per her training by her mother. During 2014-15, my brother had his cataracts corrected and was extremely happy about being able to see well again. He often spoke to me about how our lives were very similar to each other, almost running on parallel lines. One day I decided to put some of our treasured childhood and family-related photographs on the internet using Facebook. Although my brother had heard nasty stories about such sites, he was very happy to see our family pictures on the net. Amongst our black and white childhood images, one was what our mother and her sister had professionally made available, wherein I was dressed like a tiny sailor, and my little brother was dressed like a girl, as was the commonly accepted trend in those days. It was probably just for the fun of it, and was also fashionable to have such photographs taken in professional studios. Those images had been there for a long time before my brother noticed them. He was extremely perturbed about that one photograph, probably due to being criticized, laughed at, and told stupid jokes, as if he had a sex change, making him feel embarrassed. He was now saying how bad he felt about it, demanding that I remove it forthwith and replace it with another image which he sent, or he was going to stop communicating with me altogether and be gone. I pondered about that unusualness on his part for a long time, thinking that perhaps he was under pressure, probably forced to stop communicating with me by someone close to him for some absurd reason, and this was his excuse. Somebody was creating stories to make him regret his connection with me as revenge, perhaps after their disillusionment, due to his desire not to see his father-in-law. Then again, that could be somebody else, not necessarily related to him. At the time, I thought that Haldun was obviously easily manipulated. I removed that cute image of no significance almost immediately, but did not replace it with the other as he demanded. Shortly after, I received yet another message from him, where he wrote that I should know how much I had hurt him with that image posted on social media, and until it was removed, he was going to be no longer available. Although I had previously written several messages telling him how much I loved him as my brother, asking how he was, he never replied. Obviously, he was angry and resentful towards me. He had previously repeatedly been telling me that he would never break the link, but this latter attitude was quite a concern. I waited for a long time, well over a month, but still heard nothing, leaving me to wonder how people can change so quickly. I contacted his sons over the internet to tell them that their father was not communicating with me due to his possible anger over a perceived sin I had committed by putting a childhood image on Facebook, which he demanded that I remove, as it was apparently hurting him. Otherwise, he was not going to talk to me any more. Although I removed that image, he still did not correspond with me, and I decided to give him another month. If there was no response, I was going to completely remove myself from the social media as far as he was concerned, and their father would not need to worry about me any longer. His first son was surprised, wondering why he was pushing everybody away, whereas his younger son advised me that I could still write to my brother via Messenger. Maybe he did not understand my written Turkish. How strange it was that I seemed to be surrounded by no friends, but rather haters of what I stood for. For a moment it felt as if I was meant to have no one as friends. Maybe I was cursed by the so-called righteous ones praying for my demise. I could almost believe this, for their prayers were the most evil wishes under the disguise of righteousness. I was going through hell at this time, for the house we were living in was to be sold after about 2 years of our tenancy in Stanley Street, and we had to move out quickly. Again, my health was not the best at the time. I was suffering from a severe case of flu and an inflammation on my right ankle, which was extremely painful, but I had to do a lot of packing, heavy lifting, and shifting things to another house in Frankston North. It was tiresome and debilitating, although we did use a firm of so-called professional removalists, but they left us with big problems. I had no help from anybody, and Rosemary was not her best either. We hired a truck, needing to finish the removal ourselves. We still needed assistance when collecting my valuable manuscripts, books and electronic goods from under the house, many of which were rotting or moldy due to possum damage, and basically having to dump them in the carport area of the new house, thus causing more destruction in a cold and extremely rainy period of the year. This made me feel flat and very sad. Our clothing and bedding was also in a bad shape. But I was determined, as always, never to give up and make things good again, while still teaching art on a voluntary basis, and spending time with people who had no understanding of my circumstances, unable to grasp my need to do things, which made it very hard to cope. I also find it unacceptable not being able to find time to listen to music or meditate. Claude had also been going through a stormy period in his life after educational neglect during his time with the witnesses prior to his disfellowshipment and divorce from his Jehovah's Witness wife. I hope I was able to help him a little, and I'm sure he will be successful in his endeavors. But, as he can clearly see, any connection with the cultist system he was part of during his childhood and much of his early adulthood only hinders every possible outcome, as it is with a large number of people worldwide, including me. It seems my life has turned into a massive disaster zone whilst suffering pain, needing to recover while having to move out during the coldest and rainiest days of the year in Melbourne. The additional emotional pain I was inflicted with by my so-called daughter in Perth and her offspring, who were incessantly accusing me of wrongdoing without listening to what I said, without listening to reason, and not knowing anything, not even wanting to know anything about me, totally anti-me, just the same as my ex-wife, seemed to delight them, hurting me without any respect. Birgit interfered, not disciplining or teaching her daughter, instead blocking me on social media, where all the conversation and needless argumentation took place, took its toll. I had enough of their ungrounded, hateful accusations of me, and told her daughter to shut her gaping mouth, for she had now rendered herself into nothing. She was supposedly taking sides with her grandmother, Magda, and I had no alternative but end that ugly argument on her side. People from the US and England were also reading them and responding to me, and it was becoming very embarrassing. Since Birgit has blocked me without any respect, as far as I am concerned, there is no link left to consider, for every one of them follows the most evil will of Jehovah's Witnesses. I have no doubt that Birgit expects me to apologize to her daughter, who was extraordinarily abusive to me, for as far as she is concerned, despite all their disrespectfulness towards me, they always have to be correct. And I can only be wrong. Even an imbecilic idiot, unable to match the allegedly extraordinary intelligence of her daughter. I did not desire to be treated like the lowest kind of animal, as per Magda's delight and hatred. However, the highlight of the year 2016 was my brother's unique attitude towards me. But I forgive all the ill thought and stupidity I was subjected to, and move on. It seems my daughters will never change, and neither will their mother, who has certainly achieved her objectives very skillfully and successfully as per the will of her Jehovah's Witness bosses. I am unsure about my brother, and I am not sure about those others who pretended to be my friends, but when they discovered I was not dancing to their inharmonious noise, discarded me. I shall never consider them as a loss, but rather as an experience one could well do without. I can only thank them for teaching me that not everything which shineth is gold. Nobody likes to fail, but failure is an essential part of life and learning. If your uniform isn't dirty, you haven't been in the game. Ben Bernanke. I am not happy about accusing anyone in any circumstances of wrongdoing, particularly those with no intention of ill thought. However, my personal experiences regarding the known characteristics of someone like my ex-partner are correct and true. My discoveries and theories are not meant to be negative in nature or geared to downgrade anyone. They are not spoken as a character reference, but purely as an observation in the light of knowledge gained through the years. It is a study under scrutiny and discovery about Jehovah's Witnesses and their influence on people. Throughout the years, my ex-wife had been completely reorganized and recreated according to their religious cultist undertakings. She developed certain characteristics and turned completely anti-me under her faithful brother's strict control. Knowing her current and now never-changeable characteristics of utter hatred, which she can never recognize as such, she clearly demonstrated her intentions when she asked the young ones to put viruses into her sons and my telephone so that we would be unable to communicate. Remember, she also often told Claude she would rather prefer he did not see his father, let alone talk to him, due to his being wicked, following the ways of the devil, for not accepting Jehovah's teachings in obedience to the governing body, and for being shunned under the righteous judgment of their judicial committee, therefore becoming the rejected of God. Because she had been advising some people who knew Claude to make sure to hinder him in talking to, or even meeting me, I am convinced, by observing his latest trends and analyzing the words spoken by him and his current lady friend, that my observation is correct. For example, her words to Claude in regard to his parents were that she would rather have nothing to do with them, but after visiting his mother in Perth, and later going to Cairns with her, she declared that she would love to meet his mother again, for she was cool. On the other hand, she seems to strenuously discourage Claude from communicating with me. This scenario is worth considering. One can easily see the familiar trend in regard to this divine advice provided by Magda. In this instance, I cannot see any reason to think otherwise, for his current girlfriend displays similarities to Magda's wishes. Recent trends unfortunately help me see it clearly. Analyzing his closer involvement with her, and keeping away for a considerable length of time, since last Christmas, Claude has proven this influence to be the reality, although he may not be able to recognize it. Help him keep away from this evil man. If this is sadly correct, I would like to ask what the absolute evil is. I only hope that I am wrong in regard to Claude's current state with his lady friend. Unfortunately, observed trends do not declare otherwise. Again, it seems to be dictated by Jehovah's Witnesses. Look at this new trend. His current girlfriend does not allow him to correspond with his father, but as she expresses, it is okay to talk to his mother. I doubt if Claude can see the point. As I said, he had kept away since Christmas 2016. But during February 2017, when we met over a cup of coffee, he informed me that he had moved into his girlfriend's home, and soon after went to Perth to see his mother. At the time of writing, I have not seen or heard from him since. He may simply be very busy. However, somebody is most certainly following the ungodly advice from Jehovah's Witnesses, the uninspired men, advising my ex-partner what to do and how to live. Remember, they now humbly claim that they are fallible and can err. Ever since being shunned, I asked, does God really need a Jehovah's Witness organization? If so, where in the Bible is it indicated? Considering the dragon written about in the book of Revelations, does it perhaps symbolize the witness organization? This dragon has 7 heads, and interestingly the governing body is also comprised of 7 mature-aged men in charge of the witnesses worldwide. Obviously, the so-called governing body of a few selfish men are the only decision-makers at their headquarters, claiming to be representing the stars, seals, angels, and candles as written about within the pages of the book of dreams called Revelations. What about their deeds, which speak loud and clear? Observe the misery they have caused, and are still causing, all around the world. Unhappiness, family breakdowns, shunning, suicides, child abuse, and the list goes on increasing every single day. Hoping not to sound like preaching, I would like to analyze certain texts in the Bible as an observation of historic facts and anomalies, making comparisons with cultist viewpoints which have ultimately controlled my so-called family throughout the years. Revelations chapter 12, verse 3 speaks of the great dragon with 7 heads and 7 crowns. Interestingly, they have since added another to their number. Maybe they are distancing themselves from that dragon. Revelations chapter 12, verse 7 speaks of a war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought back, and his angels prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. Revelations chapter 12, verse 9. The old serpent, called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world, is cast out into the earth. On the other hand, maybe one could easily consider the Watchtower Society as comparable to Babylon the Great. According to the Bible, one cannot go to the Father in any other way but only through Christ. It does not say through the Jehovah's Witness organization. Nowhere in the Holy Scriptures can one find any reference to the Witness organization being the only mediator between man and the Father. Baptism in their organization is like signing your life away through a contract with them, and not with God or Christ. Furthermore, the witnesses do not seem to hear themselves when they preach, for they are, in reality, not glorifying the Father, but global genocide. James chapter 8, verses 22 and 23. Luke chapter 6, verse 36 advises us not to judge. John chapter 5, verses 21 to 25 explains that they cannot hear what the real shepherd says, and the Father does not judge. I recommend that they read 2 Corinthians chapter 12, where one discovers great wisdom in regard to one God, one Spirit, but many gifts similar to a body with many parts, yet functioning as one. It also advises the followers of Christ that by being baptized by the same Spirit, we are one. The witnesses interpret it differently and deliberately in order to lead the baptized to accept their governing body as the only mediator between God and men. The Jehovah's Witnesses I came across throughout the years literally destroyed my family, stole my youth, and always twisted their words. They did not know the difference between what true love and their hateful, shunning policies were about, and certainly did not realize that their principles could not emanate from the loving God they claim to worship, for their God is not a God of love. If their God is not a God of love, are they erroneously worshipping an anti-God? By shunning without thorough research of the deed sinners have supposedly committed, they purported to know that they were avoiding any hindrance to God's blessings on their governing body, whereas the reality is completely different. By their deeds, they are in fact blocking God's true love, that is, if this kind of God truly exists. According to Christian wisdom, God loves all mankind without exception, and his love is unconditional, unlike the witnesses' belief. Furthermore, by reinventing the Bible, they are committing a great sin, for it is written that no one should ever add or extract anything from God's word. People of all beliefs have defended their concepts for centuries despite all the evidence showing that they might be wrong, for they did not want to appear erroneous, nor could they afford to be classified as false. But the consequences have been felt throughout the history of mankind. Perhaps they needed to learn to be a little less fanatical with their beliefs and passions, knowing that humanity constantly advances with knowledge and discoveries, for their needs and wants change all the time. A little tolerance and patience go a lot further. Unfortunately, this is where humanity has dismally failed, still continuing with the same traditions. This is not a negative assessment, for it is the evidenced reality. Only recently I was asked by a number of caring friends, now that they are in their 40s, how do your children see you after so many years of separation? My unbiased and non-judgmental answer to that is this. As far as every one of them is concerned, even now I am a failure. Why is it so, you may ask? They have all been subjected to the most evil training and brainwashing from their infant years, where I was considered as the rejected of a supreme deity, Jehovah, after my so-called disfellowshipment by the witnesses who were the only associates of my ex-wife. They all remain extremely judgmental towards me, as they are towards the entire world, and everything it stands for. The Jehovah's Witnesses hate the world. My children never consider anything positive about me, my knowledge and experiences, in reality always seeking to find any perceived fault to complain about. Unfortunately, this is the only thing they have learned, and it remains their fundamental belief, which they have been brought up with. I really long for the day they appreciate anything about me as their father, but it seems to be a very distant dream, as far as I can logically see. Even after so many years of Jehovah's Witness-induced separation. It never ceases to amaze me when I ponder on the times of my childhood, when I was often chastised and criticized by my close relatives, cousins and father about the wrongs I was doing. Later, in my adult years, this trend continued by my ex-wife and her associates, condemning me and even at times trying to embarrass me about anything, be it my clothing, my dieting, or the way I combed my hair, thus making me feel as if I was a failure. Jehovah's Witnesses were the worst, followed by my completely unwanted encounters with people like Damon, and now the tradition seems to continue. Even my clothing is naively disliked, unjustly embarrassing me in front of people, obliging me to respond. We are larger than life. You might say this is a very brave statement, but consider for a moment being a part of something bigger than we can imagine. We sense deep down that we are living in a vastly generous universe of possibilities, searching and wondering about what lies behind the curtain of unknowns. However, we are still groping in eternal darkness, for we are indeed in the dark. So many books written eons ago are not enough to enlighten us, at least in real terms. For man's greed and hunger for power has spoilt him. Man's ideals, fears, and fantasies have colored his thoughts for a long time now, for he is originally a thought, and of thought. Yet man is also the inventor of his own self, by being who he is. We are told that we are all from the stars, the nature of which we have very little idea about. Although we cannot be absolutely sure about this, research points to the possibility of us originating from stardust. Yet some of us seem capable of hearing the whispers of the stars within our very center. And maybe we all have the same ability if we can only hearken. When you are able to hear them, you will certainly know that they are within your very soul, which we may consider as being our invisible spark, probably our inner self, real self, spirit, and our energy intelligence. Philosophically speaking, this energy intelligence needs to be everywhere, filling the entire universe we are part of, and which we cannot be separate from, for we are of the same source material and same nature expressed in many forms, according to the need and environment we are presented in. Consider that we are within the universe, just as the universe is within us. In the past, some of us have discovered this, but could not explain it to others, due to their lack of understanding or unwillingness to know. However, at the end of their short journeying, many thinkers left a wonderful gift, an impression, a simple word or short sentence, with those who were fortunate enough to hear them. However, they are often recorded on stone tablets or printed in ancient manuscripts. People were commanded to hear the wisdom if they had ears to hearken to what was very important to hear. Some were willing to listen, others preferred to ignore. The ones offering great wisdom had hoped that those desirous to know would keep thinking and discovering what was needed to be known after the simple treasures they had left them with. Those treasures contained important keys of discovery and were easy to comprehend. But man's memory, under the influence of the power-hungry, was affected adversely, and what was described before was adulterated and presented in their literature as the only truth, which could never be relied on. Many years after the event was altered and explained as stories, the self-appointed controllers of men seized the opportunity to create a way of life for those around them, creating myth-based beliefs and religious darkness. Throughout the centuries, supposedly learned men have added their own ignorant wisdom, even continuously incorporating previously available myths, legends, and other incorrect stories in their teachings with the aim of conditioning the minds of their followers. Everything was based upon the ideology of controlling the masses with all their thoughts, thus creating more myths with a hidden agenda. Many forms of religion were fostered, leading their followers astray, from time to time turning them into hateful and fanatical people, fighting each other to prove their supremacy, their way of living and their alleged belief systems being the only righteous one under the guidance of an invisible reflection of their passions and fears they named as their God. They have indeed created a God in their own image, who replicated the human trends of jealousy, greed, and hunger for power, as with humans' unending needs and wants for material possessions and wealth. Human minds have therefore been kept in total darkness and stagnated for centuries, and the real truth remains a secret. However, some brilliant and beautiful sparks of light shine throughout the world. Man's sciences, research, and understanding in his current but still infant state of enlightenment give us hope for a better tomorrow. If mankind could simply comprehend that they are part of a thought universe, they could understand that the wisdom needed for their advancement has always been available to them, and in the end would assist them achieve higher goals, completely divorced from the world's negative trends. They would have arrived at complete fulfillment of their dreams, for dreams are the language of that thought universe based upon supreme, unconditional love. Humans are always familiar with that kind of love within their own lives, as it has been the case for eons. They feel it amongst their closest and dearest, as they always have for as long as life has existed upon this beauteous planet. You and I are united in the vastness of the cosmos, for we are all an important part of it. It is said that we are the children of the stars. Every one of us is, and who indeed does not yearn to know why we are so attracted to them, wanting to discover what is out there? By research, we are closer to discovering our real origins. Every part of our being, every element, and every atom we are composed of is of the same universe, with all its complex material and thought counterparts. We all contain within ourselves the characteristics, constructional principles, and physicalities of the same. This alone unites us with the universal kingdom, which signifies no rulership as known on the earth, for its nature is different and beyond current human comprehension. These words promote no supremacy of a theocratic kind, for the whole of the universe is our parental home, the originator of our lives, containing all the base elements to construe life upon a multitude of other worlds. On the other hand, we tend to consider eternity as being reserved for our individual consciousness, but do we really know where this consciousness is based? Do we really know where we are heading? Do we perhaps merge with other consciousnesses throughout the cosmos as one? If so, what happens next? Do we perhaps go on improving throughout eternity, after our maturity training on Earth, and unite with other groups? Do we then go to other universes, galaxies, and planets to train or activate human-like creations? Do we create them? What are we in reality? If we are not that kind of consciousness, or part of a supreme consciousness, and all our thoughts we identify ourselves with as us or I am, are merely a generation within our brains, are our thoughts just electrical signals, chemical reactions, and interactions of neuronal elements and nothing more? Could it be that we are, by nature, creating or contributing towards fulfillment of a plan? Or does our consciousness no longer exist after our physical death, merging into nothingness? Both ways of thinking can be logical, because we are currently unable to grasp the vastness of consciousness, let alone what life is all about. Remember, we consider living with what we can identify using our 5 senses. What if this is all there is and nothing more? Are we being woven into the fabric of the cosmos? Could our current awareness, which we believe we are knowledgeable of, be the beginning of greater things we cannot even begin to imagine? Consider the question of individuality and personal attributes we display. Why would we need them if we are not meant to survive after our physical demise? If true, why should we have our personality trends afterwards? We certainly do not live like a huge balloon containing us as one individual self. For we retain our individuality, although we love adhering to groups, competing throughout our lives. Do we continue with the same quality and characteristics afterwards? If not, why not? It is completely unreasonable to assume anything at face value, believing we know everything. What about the time element and travel into the past or future? Whatever is happening, although not clearly evident, makes us feel that we are traveling somewhere, and it is easy to consider it as a movement into the future. But this future is completely in the mist. We seem to be forever moving forwards in an endless space, and the speed of our journey depends on our size and abilities. We feel it from the moment of our conception to when we expire within a reality dream of physicality. In reality, we are measuring the distances from the beginning until now, as we look back at the distance we traveled, creating memories, and we are still journeying non-stop into an unknown direction, designing more dreams along the pathway of life. Are all our memories just illusions we have within our conscious experience of life? Perhaps we are only dreaming in a virtual continuum, and we have no satisfactory answers. Our physical lives, or conscious existence, can be likened to lotteries. We put the numbers in, but do not know what the outcome will be. Unlike our diagnostic systems we have developed through marvelous sciences, only waiting in excitement and anticipation. When we wake up in the morning, we know we are alive, and we do all manner of things, from washing to having breakfast, from school, sports, and work, until retiring for the night, during which time we are not even conscious that we are still alive, but the hopes based on real-life experiences never fade. We know deep down that we continue being. Worry and joy are felt when we are awake, but during sleep we never concern ourselves about anything unless it is in our dreams. Life is but a circle on the earth. From birth to death, all is but one. But this circle is linked to yet another as life progresses further on. Never ending, ever continuing, exploring, learning, never boring. Life, a gift of great worth, a gift which lasts forever, a gift beyond the most precious jewel, a gift to truly treasure. Rosemary B. Conroy. Furthermore, how can we explain the complexity of human emotions and the deep feeling of love? How can we recognize and describe other human beings we encounter, realizing that they are closer than our own close relatives, partners, friends, and even our children? Although it may be rare, it happens like the experience of fantasy dreams, but is very real. We may meet someone we never met before, and something very strange happens, in that we seem to recognize them without knowing anything, and yet they declare they are in love with us without any reasonable explanation, reference point, or past connection. Somebody goes to a foreign country for the first time and recognizes a place of past residence, and other memories flood in without any logic or reasonable explanation. When what is sensed proves to be true, beyond a shadow of doubt, what are we to make of it? This happens all the time. It has happened to many people, including me, and has been kept hidden because of anticipated responses by the professional community in general. Did we really meet those others long before our time here? Did we once live in those places which we recognize without even having lived there currently? When I lived in Germany, I always had the feeling of having spent some time in areas where I had never been. Is it all recorded in our genes? Or do we possess the memory of the distant past? Is it dependent on false memories or wishful thinking? I made a personal study of this and discovered some amazing facts, but am still extremely cautious when declaring my findings. It seems that this is where fiction and reality are united. Have you ever questioned why some of us have forever repeated dreams? They become even more exciting when the episodes continue from when you needed to wake up. One of my continued dreams since childhood, when I was not yet at primary school, was about life on Mars. In my dreams, I was traveling with friends in their transporters to places around the sun, and I was often shown some of the ruins after the destruction of life there. They did not call that world as we do. The name was different. Intermittently, I continued with more dreams relating to life on Mars, a long time ago, when everything was beautiful, fresh, and healthy. There were very similar-looking animals, fish and birds, like the earthian ones, and people were like a mirror image of us. Only recently I met with my longtime friend Erha in my dreams, visiting Mars. We spoke of olden days before the great catastrophe. I began to recall some of the very romantic nights, the starry sky I admired, and the moons of delight, gardens of exquisite beauty, sweet-smelling flowers, my then lady friend, and her charming family. A long lifespan was not something unusual, as it is considered on Earth. I remember the fabulous springtime, the lush forests, bluest sunsets, the sunrise, and the oceans. I was involved in teaching in schools. I remember the laughter of students and teachers. I also recall their cries before nuclear annihilation centuries ago. I remember how everybody was hiding under large objects, tables and chairs, when the sky turned into a huge fireball and everything went dark. I can never forget how one of the teachers turned into a skeleton in front of his students, and the horror continued as everyone turned into lifeless bones. This was in my dreams, but I never thought that this could be a possible scenario if humanity did not change their nightmarish attitudes towards each other. I was told that humanity were the partial descendants of Martians. Unfortunately, current human trends do not seem to be taking man into a positive future. I was also given a sound advice for human scientists to put a very powerful telescope around Mars and see more of what devastation had befallen upon that world due to greed for power and desire to rule over the entire population. These dreams are not by any means made up, for they are as they were dreamt of. Since my childhood, I always jot down my thoughts and dreams. I was told that humanity could revive that world to its former glory, and they should. But they first need to stop all the greed and enmity similar to those who are eager to test their destructive powers. Stop destruction, says Erha. Earth does not need to become like my home planet as it was centuries ago. Advance, advance, for you can. Be at peace. The information in my repeated dreams indicates that my friend had passed on when he was only 273 in Earth years. We might think that they are only dreams, and perhaps even false memories, but they still hold some truth, which humanity needs to wake up to. Throughout his existence, man has wondered about his origins within his illusion of material life, asking why he was and where he was going after his earthly sojourn. If he was left to think for himself, he would probably come close to finding the answers within his own being, but his thoughts have been undermined by self-made leaders of selfish endeavor. His natural processes have been altered by the religious ideals he was led into. Mankind matured believing in the illusions created for them, thinking it to be the only way to live in a devotional and sinless state, to be rewarded in an illusionary afterlife, bypassing the possible realities. Remember, many of those realities are not known fully and are only theorized. Any smart leadership which would let them be free to live and progress as they needed to have been fiercely opposed, and people have been led like cattle in the fields, developing a herd mentality which has remained unchanged for centuries. This has remained as the only truth for them. They developed into groupings, separated in areas of their lives, never grasping what unity and brotherhood means, and without realizing that they all belong to the human race without boundaries. All of man's disappointments, disillusions, and fears are based upon their inability to think for themselves by being led. All of man's war efforts and destructive endeavors are the result of the same. With these words, no separations, no oppositions, and no enmity amongst men is encouraged. By these words, no jealousies, sarcasm, rebellion is promoted. These words are spoken in good faith, for men to think and listen to the whispers of the stars. Listen to the sounds of silence deep within and in your beautiful minds when you first wake up early in the morning and late at night when you begin to rest. There you may also be aware of your guardian's voice. And remember, you are being presented with opportunities in many forms to recognize that voice and the whisper, for you are never alone, never abandoned, and are always loved. Maybe we should all be aware of our invisible childhood friends more often. This may be one way to learn about the possible realities. Watch, listen, and do not ignore those opportunities to discover who or what is out there, who could be your universal guide. That may be someone you discover only in your dreams and meditations. That someone would never keep you in bondage. Maybe, just maybe, considering that unconscious part of your mind self as your beloved friend, who is not separate from your actual being, could help. Remember, your closest is your own self, and that self dwells within your unconscious mind. Do not ever consider your life's being so limited, believing that you have not got any time to live, be, and think in the world whereupon you are born. Know that you are forever, only playing different roles, and in different disguises throughout the centuries, because you are part of something really big, something beyond your wildest dreams. There is always an intelligent order in the universe and in all things observable, from the smallest part of atoms to molecular structures, from tiny one-celled life forms to huge mountains, to oceans, to animal and human species. Therefore, a logical construction is found in everything we are surrounded with, yet we are still in the dark. However, it is not what some people try to describe it as the source of all things intelligent, or even an individual God. Since known human understanding is either completely lacking or utterly illogical, the alleged concept of God does not and cannot provide us with the answers. There is so much more to discover. Intelligent wisdom, which in itself is energy, never ceases to exist, because energy can never be destroyed. It can only change from one form into another, and individual intelligence energy keeps on passing in its uniqueness into other forms of itself, expressed in different ways, characteristics, and colors. All is contained within its own unique code. It is continually self-generating, thus creating the illusions of dying and being born. What is observed remains ephemeral and illusionary, but the original design, in whichever way it may have begun, does not change. Search into your inner selves, study your mind selves, and you will surely see the truth of it, for it always remains unchanging, creative, inventive, and wise. But it is not a deity. It is far beyond that. Philosophically speaking, like you, I am of that intelligence, like you, I am also forever, never disappearing, but always changing. There is no death, for it is part of the illusion. No matter how unbelievable it may sound, neither you nor I can die. We remain forever in our genetic codes, for we are part of that intelligence energy, but are unique individuals who remain in whichever form as long as we may desire. It is conscious and aware, knowing, thinking, logical, and continually on the move, while creating further illusions, using logic to reinvent itself. An energy intelligence experiencing many forms of life. It needs to express itself and creates its other aspects, which become individualized, remaining disguised in many dimensions, playing a variety of roles. It can multiply itself, creating further aware selves when it desires, and when there is need. Defined as positive or negative, matter and antimatter, it is capable of expressing itself in any form. You and I are therefore prime examples of the same origins, retaining an absolute individual self forever. The concepts of God and the devil do not and cannot explain the real truth. Therefore, remaining part of the illusions created within the imagined reality humanity has been led into for centuries. We may even go a little further and theoretically claim that we are the Creator's own selves, but we can never claim to know what is to be known, while we must and need to remain masked behind the veil of physicality, dreaming reality dreams. Everything written and experienced remains part of the adventures of life, which we can neither fully accept nor deny, but there comes a time when everything will be revealed. Until then, I can see no other option but accept what is being experienced. When I put myself under the microscope, I seem to observe familiar patterns with others around me. This has been the same since my childhood. I kept asking about the same or similar issues, which intrigued me. Whenever I vocalized my thoughts to others, I often found that some people were unable to grasp the concepts under review, and so they remained within my inner world for a long time. Telepathy also intrigued me. It is broadcast thought, received or sent out, although it was previously unavailable to me. That is, until I was inspired, receiving impressions remotely from another source. What I discovered during my childhood was that when I open my eyes to a new day, I am consciously aware of my thought self, which thinks, and I expect to see and feel the elements of the physical world around me. Does my expectancy create the reality I consider as real? When I am thinking, I know that I am alive, for I am conscious. But when I share those thoughts through my physical expressions to others, I seem to confirm the validity of my reality, that I am thinking, and therefore I am conscious of my being. However, when on my own, I might choose to talk to myself, yet it might be my imagination, for in my dreams, like many others, I do the same. It is understood, therefore, that through interaction, we all know we are alive. When thoughts are shared in any dimension, it points to the fact that we are here, whereas all our memories remain illusional, as if remembered or virtually received elements of an ethereal realm. But how much is actual and real? When I'm gone from this reality, I too become impression, a thought, and an idea. But was I there? I can always imagine of being aware, for it is also within my reality, existing in a thought universe, although I remain an individual. Like everybody else around me, I am a free-floating energy, and cannot see anything that stops the flow. I am aware of me all the time. However, I cannot claim to know everything about what processes exist to make me express myself again in another form. On further consideration, I question, am I my own dream, my imagination, or my fantasies? Am I the everlasting component of what I identify myself as me, the dreamer who creates the virtual reality of what I call me? Are we the one who is I am that I am? Why is it that we are many and yet only one? There are indications that it might be exactly so, for we discover throughout our history that we are stronger and better when in unity. Therefore, when all humanity is united, what could be the outcome? As can be seen today, if their ideals are opposing, there can be no unity. The Bible speaks of a great war between opposing powers as if their conflicts are furthered in the heavens. Perhaps humanity is inspired by those opposing ideals in regard to what the elusive deity who might have desired to punish them by confusing their tongue and their social standing to impede their progress on earth. Who and what indeed inspires us, if it is true? Are we inspired to live the way we have done for ages? Are we the only decision-makers? If the answer is affirmative, why do we humans live the way we do? If we can find a way to enjoy the beauty of life around us, no matter what, whether actual or dreamt of, without strife and without enmity, probably we, as an entire human race, will be enabled to know more truths, and therefore advance. Imagine a world we could create without the problems we face every day of our current lives. One thing is certain, that as a whole human family, there can be no outside help to correct our ways. Until we make those corrections for ourselves, we will continue to grope in the dark. Instead of destroying each other, humans would do better by working with each other towards a common goal to achieve ultimate advancement. Thereupon, they would have a brilliant future. May unconditional love be the guiding light. One of my favorite physicists is Neil deGrasse Tyson, who once said, "Not only we are in the universe is in us. I don't know of any deeper spiritual feeling than what that brings upon me." I was there when we created music. I was there when we made all things shine. I was there to feel the first spark of life. I was there, beloved. I was there to see all space unfolding as a speck to all corners of universe. O mighty unseen presence, 'Twas creation awakened to love's mist, self-sustained. From a deep sleep evolving. Unexamined life is not worth living. Socrates. The one who takes things too seriously all day long has no joy in his life. The one who wastes the day in seeking amusement cannot maintain a position of fortune. Ptah-hotep.